Greetings, members one and all of the Salivation Nation. Well, it's official. U.S. silver production the lowest in more than 70 years. Most of us nowadays, when we see headlines like this, it makes us wonder. We've seen things like this happen before where, the news or some particular source says something that sounds really good for those of us who hold the precious metal, because that means more than likely the prices are going to go up. But in recent years, we've seen that that's not necessarily been the case, even though we've seen headlines like this time and time again. And it's not to say that we shouldn't necessarily believe it, because just because we see here this article comes to us from Seeking Alpha, we can see that it's a sponsored material from Money Metals Exchange, which is a dealer. You see here, Steve St. Angelo is the author of this article here. Now, that is not to say that the information provided here is necessarily false. We have to look into it a little bit deeper to kind of understand what's going on here. And that's what we're going to do right now. So we see the headline, U.S. silver production the lowest in more than 70 years. That's true. But let's take a look here at the summary, then we'll kind of take a deep dive here. It's referencing the USGS, and silver production in the U.S. is now the lowest in 70 years. And most of you know, very recently I posted an article that talked about production from the USGS. More on that later. And it's talking about the Lucky Friday mine. It's been shut down ever since the United States Steelworkers went on strike on March 13, 2017. But that drop-off in silver mine supply can't all be blamed on the Lucky Friday mine. So let's explore this by Steve St. Angelo. With the latest release by the USGS, silver production in the U.S. is now the lowest in more than 70 years. We have to go all the way back until the year after World War II ended, which was 1946, to see the U.S. silver production less than it was in 2018. Now also, keep in mind that sentence there. Back until the year after World War II ended, there was a lot of silver being produced and in the national defense stockpiles for the Manhattan Project leading up to World War II. So, in a sense, that time after World War II, there wasn't as much silver needed. There wasn't that demand that you had for the Manhattan Project and the like. And also, keep in mind, that silver was also being used in our coinage at the time. U.S. silver production is less than it was in 2018. While many reasons can be attributed to the decline, the main factors are falling ore grades and mine economics. There's some truth-telling there as far as economics there. Not that it means that there's not silver in the ground. Unfortunately, there just aren't too many economic silver deposits in the United States, especially with the high level of environmental and governmental regulations. Instead of dealing with all the bureaucracy, companies are looking to Mexico and South America to open new silver projects. Well, can you blame them? That's the thing, and that's why it's important, I believe, in this day and age, especially concerning precious metals, that politics definitely, in every aspect, has a role in how these prices come about. And it can dig deep, way deep into the ground as far as regulations and prohibitions in that way with environmental and governmental regulations. So this is the case we see here. And because of that, here we go. U.S. domestic silver production from 2017 to 2018, down 10%. Here we see from this graph. Regardless, U.S. silver production declined by more than 100 metric tons last year, or 10% in 2018, mainly due to the ongoing closure of the Lucky Friday mine in Idaho. So that's the thing to keep in mind there. The summary says that wasn't, you can't bet on it, but this is the main reason. The Lucky Friday mine has been shut down ever since the United Steelworkers went on strike on March 13, 2017. However, the drop-off in silver mine supply can all be blamed on the Lucky Friday mine. Domestic silver production has been trending lower for the past 2 decades. And here we see, this is domestic annual silver production. And really, for all intents and purposes, this makes sense and doesn't necessarily translate to higher silver prices. In 2000, the U.S. produced 63.7 million ounces, which is 1,980 metric tons of silver compared to just 29.7 million ounces last year, which is 923 metric tons. Thus, U.S. silver production has declined by more than 50% in less than 2 decades. Silver production in the U.S. ramped up significantly during the 1990s due to the McCoy Cove silver mine in Nevada. At its peak, the McCoy Cove mine supplied 20% of the total U.S. silver production. And here we can see the McCoy Cove mine supply there, this chart. He doesn't have a chart of U.S. silver mine supply over the past 100 years, but he did check the USGS data, and in 1946, the country produced only 713 metric tons of silver. Interestingly, while silver production had declined due to the war focusing its efforts on the strategic metal mining, which we talked about, the 2,090 metric tons in 1941 to 903 metric tons in 1945. The significant drop-off in 46 was also due to mine strikes at base metal mines and smelters. Because most of the silver is a byproduct of base metal mining, the strikes had a profound impact on overall production. So even though the shutdown of the Lucky Friday mine reduced U.S. silver production by 3 to 4 million ounces, it doesn't account for the additional 30 million ounces lost since 2000. And I think a lot of that, going back up here, we can see here how the domestic supply, that I believe is due to, as was said here, admittedly enough, due to government and environmental regulations and the like being more stringent coming off of here in 2000. So with all that being said, does that mean there's less silver to mine? Well, possibly. Even the USGS report, which here, we'll take a look at here, we can see here that the statistics bear, and they definitely show what Steve St. Angelo is talking about in his report here. There's definitely a decrease, a substantial decrease, especially since 2014 here. But notwithstanding, there is still silver in the ground. It's just a matter of getting the mines, and of course with strikes, and there's a lot of things that come into play. But also, I will reference you to my prior video that talks about, based off of USGS, that really silver reserves and production are generally overall up around the world. And that's the thing to consider, because when you look at all the manufacturing and considering the silver's role as a duality metal, there is a lot of production going on. And considering, notwithstanding what's going to happen in China's economy and other places that consume silver, especially for manufacturing of electronics, solar and the like, and the demand for silver compared to production, those are the kind of things that are going to weigh. I think the demand for silver will drive supply at this point, and they'll find a way to get it. And if they can't get it in the United States, well, they'll find it in other places. They will look and find it in Mexico or Peru, and some of that production has gone down for the primary silver mines, but as a byproduct of other metals, watch out, because those other metals are needed as well, or maybe not needed as much. So if nickel, copper, gold, for electronics and for things like that, if it's not needed and the demand is low, well, there'll be less silver produced as well, because silver is used as well in tandem with those other metals, in many cases in electronics. So that's the kind of thing to think about. The other story, and I will post a link to it in the end screen of this video, to the USGS report that talks about mining supply increasing. It says we have about 19 years left of silver mining. And that's kind of scary to think about, and it's also something bullish to consider. But that's considering at today's mines. And with discovery being the way it is, and advances in geotechnical analysis and discoveries, and we'll find other places to get silver by then. So my feeling is that we can be pretty confident that in all of our lifetimes, I don't care if you're 15 years old watching this video, they're going to find a way to get silver. It may be difficult, it may be more difficult. I do believe I am bullish on silver. I do think that by the end of the year and going into 2020, that the prices will rise to a level. And I believe we'll look back here at $15 and odd cent silver and think to ourselves, boy, you know, I remember those days when silver was that low, because I think we're going to get a new norm, and I think it's going to probably be, you know, within the next couple of years, closer to $20 than to $15. And I think that's a pretty safe assumption when considering the prior year. I was much more bullish on where silver was going to be. I mean, there's a lot of things that come into play with all of this, and I know people have been discouraged about silver prices, but you know, keep in mind, we can't chase stories that support something that may or may not happen. And again, I'm not necessarily disputing the information in this article here at all, but the headline screams, "Ooh, man, there's less silver being produced, and I better get some." Don't ever be swayed by whatever stories that you hear as far as, you know, the supply or anything like that, or demand driving price. Just buy as you can. That's the advice that I'd like to be constant with. Buy as you can afford, because every ounce counts, and every ounce you get that you didn't have before will make a difference. The beautiful thing about silver is it's cheap enough, and even if it goes up to $50 an ounce again, well, you know what? People can save up for $50 an ounce to get a 1 ounce round or coin much easier in many cases than they can for even a 10th ounce of gold. And even though, as such, I do encourage people to diversify into some gold as well. But there you have it. So post your thoughts below about this information and this story here. And I would just caution all the viewers out there to just be careful what you read out there. Take it for what it is. You know, just because it's true, you have to think about the context. And in this case, you know, we have to think about global context. So again, stay tuned for the end screen of this video, where you see a link to the USGS report on silver production and reserves increasing around the world. Post your thoughts below. I would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for watching, and encourage you to please rate, share, and subscribe. Yes, if you can share this video, that would be great. A multitude of gratitude to you all.